Right, Michelle, we are back for our second episode of our spring musical season. This is very exciting. We have our first guest of the season, returning guest, my husband, Dom Palladino from The Room Over. Dom was specially selected for this episode because this is one of his favorite films, which I feel like is pretty unassuming. So, Dom, I'm going to start with you. Do you have the first memory of seeing this movie?
I don't think so. I mean, it might have been the first time I saw it, might have been the time we watched it together, but it was, I would imagine, probably during COVID.
Yeah,
Because
sounds right.
during COVID, I kind of went through all like the best of movie lists. Like I believe this movie's on the AFI top musicals list. I'll start by saying I'm not really a huge musical fan. Like I really don't know much. I haven't seen that many musical movies. This movie just specifically stood out to me, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later. But I think it's a lot of I love the music in the movie, but I think a lot of the non-music aspects of the movie also work really well for me. And there's definitely a trend of my favorite movies with kind of the themes and the characters in this movie. There's definitely a connection there. This movie's actually, I believe it's on my Letterboxd top four, so it's up there.
It is.
Wow.
It's a big deal.
I think it's really a big deal for you not being a fan of musicals.
I connect this movie a lot with Singing in the Rain, and I saw this way before I saw Singing in the Rain. I only saw Singing in the Rain for the first time less than a year ago.
Yeah, when we saw it at the Academy Museum, right?
Right.
Perfect way to see it.
So yeah, I'm sure this movie gets compared a lot to that, but yeah, I mean, I like this movie more than Singing in the Rain. I feel like it's an unpopular opinion, but we just recently went to the Academy Museum in Los Angeles to see it, and that was awesome.
I feel very lucky that my first time seeing Singing in the Rain was also there.
What a great
as
experience.
opposed to this week when I tried to rewatch this 3 separate times at 10 p.m. on my laptop. But I don't think that's what Gene Kelly really, how he wanted me to watch this movie.
No,
It felt
I doubt
wrong.
that.
Yeah. Michelle, what about you? I feel like we've never really even talked about this movie together, so I'm excited.
Yeah, this was also like a late in life discovery for me. I do have a memory of our grandparents had a TV in their basement and they had like a modest collection of VHSs, but I do have a memory of one of them being An American in Paris. I remember that cover, and if I can find a version of it, I'll add it to the video. I'm thinking at some point we may have watched it as kids. I think for me, what came next before I really like watched it for real as an adult is I do something that I think is like weird because I don't know anyone else who does this, but since this is our musical season and hopefully we are attracting fellow musical lovers, I'm curious if anyone else does this, which is I love listening to soundtracks of shows, of Broadway shows, recordings from like current ones to old ones, even if I've never seen the show before. And I feel like I've gotten to know a lot of shows that way, like soundtrack first. And then I'm like, oh, this is great. I want to see the show. So the Broadway version of American in Paris came out in 2015. Sometime after that, I must have started listening to the soundtrack and I fell in love with it. It's still like one of my most listened to soundtracks. And I guess eventually I thought, well, I should probably revisit the movie. I'm sure I've seen it at some point because the story was familiar to me. But what I also did was, as I said, like listening to these soundtracks, I'm like, I want to see the show. The show was no longer on Broadway by the time I got really into the soundtrack. But it is one of the few shows that they have recorded, and you can watch a recording of it on. They have this site called, I think, Broadway HD. That was probably the first place I watched it, but I loved it so much that I bought it on Amazon Prime and I've watched it. I've probably seen the stage recording more than I've seen the movie, but all of it to say, I have seen the movie a handful of times in the last 5 or so years, and I love it. I love it just as much. And I don't know that I saw it or like knew the movie well before I went to Paris, which was in 2019. But I definitely, part of my, I know the three of us joke about this a lot. I went when I went to Paris, I was a little disappointed because I was expecting this very idealized version. And I think I was expecting to step into this movie, even though I didn't have that as a benchmark. This is like what I thought Paris was really like. And it is not at least not in the 2020s.
It was the opposite experience of Jerry Mulligan stepping into the painting for the 17-minute routine at the end. Yes. So Dom, what, I know you mentioned some things already at the top, but are there any standout things that you love most about this movie?
I love the characters. I think it's a great setup. The whole idea of these kind of starving artists living on the edges of society in Paris is such a great setup, and the characters have such great relationships with each other. It's a genuinely funny movie. I think a lot of these musicals are kind of like lame 1940s musical humor. But this movie's actually funny. The music's great. The dance numbers are great. I kind of like the dated, messy love square that's going on in this movie. It's weird and complex, and there's a lot going on. I love that, and I think it's a very small movie in a good way. This movie, I think it's like just under 2 hours, but it feels like 30 minutes watching it because it's just three guys hanging out at a cafe, and like eventually they get to this kind of love square going on, but it's a very laid back movie in a way, which I love.
I also really appreciate a laid back movie. One of the things I wanted to ask you guys, not to jump right to this, but this is one of the things that I love, is that there's conflict, obviously, because they have like conflicting love interests, but there's not really like a bad guy in this movie, unless, do we think that Milo is supposed to be the villain? Because if so, I wrote a note that said like they're doing a terrible job, at least in my opinion, because I love her. She's one of my favorite characters in this movie.
Yeah, the characters are all so likable, and I think the acting is actually really good. And Laura and I talk about this all the time, but I think even if there's an unlikable character in a movie, they should at least be compelling in a way that makes you interested in that character. And to your point, Michelle, I mean, people kind of make messy decisions and are kind of complex in this movie in its own way, but everyone is just so likable and winning that you're kind of fully invested in all the characters. And I know I think it makes it like a stronger emotional movie because there's this kind of like complex web of relationships going on. You genuinely feel conflicted because you like all the characters involved, and I just think it makes it more compelling.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like there's obviously things that are deemed controversial and in terms of age gaps and all of that, but I don't really think I don't know. It doesn't take me out of it while watching this. And it's just like really fun to watch Gene Kelly for an hour.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm about to get canceled, but I feel like I think we need more messiness in movies. Like kind of a weird relationship, like when there's money involved and age gaps and kind of I don't know. I like the kind of messiness and like you feel kind of uncomfortable and kind of complex. I think that
Yeah.
I like
I
feel
don't feel like this movie condones any of that either. I think they almost just there's one thing that I think is kind of like the biggest jarring thing, which is more so, is it Henry, the one who's the cabaret singer, and like her relationship and kind of how they came to be. But I think because this is a musical and it is so focused on the performances, like the story obviously goes hand in hand, but I don't know, it doesn't. This is like weirdly like an exception movie for me for where I'm not thinking so much into those pieces or background as much.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I thought they did a really good job in kind of like honing in on a little bit more in the stage musical. They actually, to make it more complicated, made Adam's character also in love with Lise. So it was kind of like all three of them and her. But what they did with Henri's character in the stage performance, like it's just something I would like tie a bow on. It's so perfect. It works well. It does not feel icky at all. It feels the opposite. You're very satisfied with it. this is not a movie, even though we kind of get like these two leads together at the end, that doesn't necessarily like make me happy in either story, in the movie or the show. But I don't know, there's something about the show version that makes me feel a little bit more satisfied with the ending.
I know that they needed to. People love like a, happy last scene in a love story, but I think it would have been more realistic that they don't end up together.
Yeah.
And it's kind of this longing thing where he's just left with Paris without her. So
Laura, I want you to write this version of it, because I feel like you would write like
I would make it really depressing.
A messier version, like to Dom's point. And I think it would have been, I think they have the beginnings of messiness, and because it's a musical and because this was 1951, like they had to make it pretty as they can make it. But I do feel like the story would not end that way.
Yeah.
And it would feel more true to life.
I know. I mean, it's cool that you have been able, I think, to see the stage play as well, because there's so many comparisons that you've drawn. But is there anything specifically from the movie that you like better than the stage play?
Yeah, I mean, it's also so hard to compare, because I love the 90s, or this is like early 1950s, so you're still getting a lot of like 40s energy to it. And I don't think that I realized this until this rewatch, that Vincent Minnelli, who also directed Meet Me in St. Louis, which you can find in our archives, that was one of our earlier films that we covered. So he directed both of these, and it has that very similar colorness to it. I'm an art major. I should know a more like precise word for this, but it has kind of a similar color palette. Everything's very saturated. And I don't know, as I've gotten older, I've learned to appreciate all different types of musicals. But I think in my heart, this is like the type that I like the most, that feels very like, this is fake. This is like a fake world, very dreamlike, very, mimicking the colors that we see in The Wizard of Oz when they switch to color. And again, like, we want movies to do different things for us, but I think, to sum it up, movies for everyone is an escape. And if I'm going to escape somewhere, why not here?
Yeah, I think it's fitting that Michelle also loves the movie Mary Poppins, because one of the dance sequences in the last 17 minutes reminds me exactly of when they go to the fair, when he's dancing and the guys are all in the suits and the top hats, and it just felt very Mary Poppins. So perfect Michelle movie.
I love the set design in this movie. And Michelle, like we were talking about before, this movie strikes a tricky balance of, like, when you watch the movie, you obviously know they're not filming on the streets of Paris, and it's like it's a back lot in like Burbank, but it's still this kind of dream world, but also not in a way like I watched the movie and I know, I've been to Paris. I know that's not what Paris.
Not to brag or anything.
It's still, I don't know. It's like this weird, like, alternate universe of Paris in a movie that you want to hang out there. Yeah, no, I think the set design just is really well done.
I really don't love movies that take place on sets. Like, or very obvious a set. I know a lot of movies are based on sets, but like, it has that very clear backdrop. But this is absolutely an exception for me. It wouldn't be the same movie if it wasn't set up this way. But I think in current movies, when it's very clearly a set, I almost can never watch it. It just takes me out of it completely. I also think it's just the nostalgia of the fact that this takes place, it was filmed in the 50s, that it just gets a pass for me.
Well, I mean, it takes a lot of work to make a set design that is that effective. I mean, if you look at the cafe that they're in, like all the small details and everything, like, it feels so lived in, and it triggers like this like Pavlovian like response in us. Like, we all want that Parisian cafe where there's the 80-year-old guy like serving you coffee. Like, that's something everyone wants, even though it's not necessarily realistic.
Some more than others, meaning the three of us.
Right.
When I was watching that, I mean, there are quite a few scenes that take place in that cafe, but that first scene and that first song that they sing together, And with the man and the woman, like, dancing, and then they have the flower lady getting involved. I took it upon myself to cast the three of us in this because I know how much all three of us like appreciate a scene like this and a setting like this. And we do want to hop into this part of the movie. So the two of you are the cafe, like she looks like a nonna, like an older, and the guy, and I cast myself as the flower lady, who also makes an appearance later on.
It checks out because you're such a botanist. So it really, you keep all of your plants alive. Yeah, I also always think about the first scene where we see Milo and Jerry in the jazz club and they're just having espresso, whatever time of night it is, with their liquor. And I was having an out of body experience. I was like, this is just
the
what I
character
want.
introductions are unmatched in this movie. Like you immediately jump in and know exactly who the characters are, and it makes you like excited to hang out with them. All four of them. I was blown away this time around with like Lisa's introduction, where it's basically just different like ballet sequences explaining her personality, and Jerry, like the first scene with him in the cramped apartment, like that physical choreography of his daily routine, and Adam with like the self-deprecating humor. Yeah, it was great.
I think that for the time and for this being a musical where I don't think the people are expecting much like deep characterization and development, this movie does a really, really good job. Kind of the first apartment we see is, like you said, Jerry's, where he's this artist, and he's got, he's a starving artist. You see, he's sleeping on like this bed that's like part of a pulley system, and everything's coming down. Like it feels almost like I don't know. I'm thinking like in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the dad like makes all these like inventions and things that move around the house. It has kind of like that feel to it. And then I love in Adam's apartment, his apartment is like, it's so exactly what you would expect for someone like him. Like he has his piano because that's like his main thing. But then on the walls, the only other things that are up there are like pinup photos of like, of women, and then like a full encyclopedia set. And that's all he needs. That's all he needs are like those three things.
And you know that he just spends all day in there on the piano doing nothing and then goes down to the cafe to have coffee.
Yes. The introductions of their two apartments really stood out to me. And I was thinking, oh, it's kind of like a shame that we didn't get that for the other characters. And for Lise, we don't really ever, I don't think, see her where she lives, unless we're assuming that she lives maybe with Henri. And I didn't think that we got to see where Henri lived, but I did rewatch part of it last night, and there is one scene where they're like in their house, and I just have to call out that they're having, I don't know what meal, I'm assuming like lunch or dinner, but there's like a full bird on like a platter with like its head very much still intact. Like it kind of looks like it's alive. I don't know if it's like a goose or something, but it has like a color to its head. So I'll have to fact check that. But just, I think having that on the table is what I'm taking as like the takeaway, that Henri is the only like is well of the three guys is the only one wealthy enough to like have something like that just for like an everyday lunch.
Have a full bird.
Yes. And then of course we get Milo's gorgeous townhouse, whatever that is.
One of the biggest things that I really was just thinking about this time around, comparing the 1950s to now, which I could go down an entire, I could write an essay about how I just miss a lot of things from different eras and how we've evolved and made things easier for ourselves without putting the work in and kind of getting rid of creativity with a lot of new things. This movie, the actors are performers in their craft. So like Gene Kelly is a trained dancer. Like that is his background. And then also he obviously morphed into this amazing filmmaker, choreographer, all the things. And he specifically scouted Lise for this, like from the French ballet. So he thought this role, like there was a whole, I think, like from a studio perspective, they obviously wanted to cast an American in this for probably a lot of easier reasons, but he felt very strongly this needed to be like a dancer first. And you can kind of tell like she's really young. It's her first role. She doesn't do much in terms of her dialogue and stuff. Like she's very much, it's focused on her performance from a dancing perspective. And then like Adam, he's actually a pianist. Like he's a pianist, he's a conductor. So like that was his background, yet he played this role so well. And then Henri is also like a like he has like a cabaret background. So I just think comparing to, the last 5 years when I think of films that have mostly music in it, which not to hate on La La Land because we are going to cover that in the next episode and I love it. But like Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling are not dancers. They're not singers. Like they are not performers in this way. And movies now are very focused on who has the most recognizable name that could get butts in seats so that we can make money, which is all fair. Even like A Star is Born, I'm always blown away that actors go through these trainings to fit these roles. And most recently, like Timothée Chalamet's character in the Bob Dylan biopic, like it's mind-blowing that they're able to transform into these people and learn how to sing, but they're not singers, so it was very refreshing, I think, to watch at this time and kind of like have these very long performances where you're spending time and just watching this amazing, amazing ballet performer do what she's been trained to do her whole life, but on screen in a different format. And I guess you could argue that maybe they're not the most amazing actors in the world, but I actually think they do a fantastic job. So I think that I am longing for art where it's just authentic and it's not like you're needing to train for something in a year to become something else. And I think we've unfortunately lost that.
I mean, think about how difficult it is that the ballet at the end of this movie pretty much has to explain the emotions and like how we get to the ending of the movie, which, if you're not a professional dancer, how are you going to do that? So, and the fact that it works is credit to how talented they are.
Exactly.
Do we want to talk about the ballet at the end of the movie? Because I feel like I've done a little bit of a turnaround on my original thoughts on it.
Why?
Yeah.
What was the original thought? You didn't like it?
It's not that I didn't like it. I know that we have a subsect of our audience who thinks that me and Laura are like annoying millennials who don't have an attention span, and you're not completely wrong. But I think in past years, I've watched this and have kind of been bored by it. I signed up for a musical and you gave me a ballet, and that's fine. That's what the vision was for this movie. But this time around, I don't know, I had a new appreciation for it. Maybe it's because I'm getting older, but I actually went back and watched it a second time because I was like, this is its own piece of art. I don't know, there's still something about it a little bit conceptually that annoys me about presenting something as a musical, and then like this is like a long time to ask of someone's attention. Even 1951, 17 minutes, especially if you're not prepared for it, which I imagine most people seeing this for the first time in the 50s were not prepared for this. I would be asking a lot of questions and I'd be getting very fidgety because I would feel like something is going wrong because this is not what the rest of the movie has been.
I haven't really thought too deeply about it, but I am also the same way where, unfortunately, I can very much sit through movies without needing to get up and I'm always locked in. But I think during this scene, it is a little long. I just love the marching band, though, that shows up like two separate times. It's like the funniest and most exciting thing.
Wow. I don't know. I love it. I don't know. I like it as someone who, as I typically would agree with you, Michelle, like I want the emotion to be conveyed through like a song, but for whatever reason, I don't know, like just the ballet just completely works on me. I'm like, it's like might be my favorite scene in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing to see also the transitions of like their outfits and like all these different scenes within those 17 minutes. It's just really impressive.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's the kind of musical concept where the emotions like bursting out of you and you can't help but sing out like how you're feeling. And I just feel like the complex emotions that he's feeling at that time are so well conveyed through the ballet that by the end, when the movie ends there, I don't know, I completely understand without him saying anything, just through like score and dance, like completely. how he's feeling at that time.
Yeah. I also like the dreamlike state of him going into this painting, and I interpret it as I know there's more to it, and I probably need to watch it a couple times over to nail all the parts, but I interpret it as like him seeing what things could be if they ended up together. And not to compare it to La La Land, because La La Land I think was more influenced by Singing in the Rain, not as much with this movie, but he does do that reel at the end to show the two main characters kind of like what their life would have been if their paths would have ended up the same way and they wouldn't have had these careers. And I mean, it's completely different. It's not a 17 ballet sequence. It's literally like a videotape of like someone's home video. But I very much saw this as him seeing, oh, this is what my life could have been like with her in Paris if she stays. Like, we're going to have this entire exciting life together. And then he ends up getting it at the end of that, dreaming and longing. But I think it would have been even deeper if he doesn't get it. This is a great long what do we like section. I'd love to rattle off some other things if you don't. Or Michelle, did you have anything else to say?
About the ballet. I guess I just wanted to say that in hearing both of you kind of give your interpretation of it and things that you loved about it, I do, in thinking about me watching this movie in American Paris and longing to jump into, like, especially that scene, any of the scenes at the cafe, this version of Paris. I feel like I feel for Jerry's character in his world, imagining an even more idealized version of Paris with this woman that he loves, or girl that he loves, as a part of it. So I think I really have an appreciation for like letting a character's imagination play out and giving us a peek into that. And even this is the first time I realized that even within that, this kind of, there's like they take it one more step in that, like the Toulouse-Lautrec section is like even another, it's like a dream of a dream. That kind of threw me a little bit when I realized that, but still cool. I kind of feel like they went all out, and if they wanted to take it a little bit further, go for it.
I also think that especially, like, you have to be watching that in a theater. We can't be watching that sequence sitting on our couch. It's just wrong. It feels wrong. Like, that is a ballet, so I think that at some point the three of us will need to go watch this on a big screen.
Yes, please.
I know we've talked a lot about Adam, but I just wanted to say, I'm just going to launch into the characters that I resonate most with in this film, or that I just love. And I love how Adam is just absolutely jaded the whole movie and smoking cigarettes in bed and dreaming about him being this amazing conductor. I did want to talk a little bit about the fashion in this movie. And I know this is an audio medium, but when Michelle uploads the video version, I'm sure she'll cut in some of the outfits in this movie. And what I'm going to say is probably not what you're expecting, but I am a little bit concerned about how much my style as of recent has looked very much like Jerry Mulligan's outfits. I have these white pants that are hauntingly similar to what Jerry's wearing, and just these like oversized sweaters that he's wearing around Paris, and the loafers. That's actually how I want to dress.
And socks. Yeah.
And socks. So I think I'm in the spring moving into summer period where I really have been feeling like I need some fashion consulting to look more like Lisa's character, but I just couldn't get it out of my head that I look like Jerry Mulligan. We didn't talk too much about Lisa's entrance or her introduction, which is such a beautiful scene just to show all the different Technicolor rooms. Do either of you have like a favorite outfit or scene from those flashes of Lisa's introduction, if you remember?
I don't know that I have a favorite though. I think I think I love all of them equally. And something that I really loved, again, this is like a design. I feel like this movie has so many good design moments. The very last kind of the shot we end on, where they kind of bring all of the figures together, is designed so nicely, not just in that we see all of the different colors represented, but even in the composition, I'll put this up in the video. It is as if something that I would design in like a magazine layout, in that all of her figures are kind of, they're like facing inward. It's such a beautiful, that last shot, it is its own little piece of art. So I think the
So good.
culmination is more of what I appreciate than the individual looks. But do
Yeah.
either of you have a favorite?
I don't have a favorite sequence, but I'll say I think what this movie does really well is explaining why someone feels a certain way. I think a lot of movies have an issue where a character has a certain emotion where they're like, I love this woman, and you're like, do you? I can't tell. Like you like. Whereas this movie, when with Jerry and Henri are both like in love with this woman, just in one silent ballet scene, you completely understand why they love her. Like just through like the dance, like the different ballet sequences, explaining the different facets of her personality, you completely understand. Like I completely get why Henri loves this woman, and then eventually Jerry loves this woman. I think all the characters have that, where you completely understand why they feel that way. I mean, it's not just written down and they're reading a line, but it's not felt through, like in
Yeah.
the emotion or the acting.
That's a good point, because I think, Jerry even says multiple times, I don't really even know her that well, like, because they don't talk about things, but she shows who she is through dance, through the art of dance.
Like, they're just
Yeah.
so charismatic. I'm like, it's fine, Jerry. It's like, do you really need to know someone? And like what I was saying, I mean, what we were all saying before about the complex kind of love triangle there, where she has to pick between Jerry and Henri, regardless of if she chose Jerry at the end or if she chose Henri, like I would understand both decisions, because like I understand her attraction to both those characters.
Michelle, did you have a favorite, like a standout outfit from this movie?
I think I could, if I were to go in more detail, probably find a ton of things that I love just from the ballet alone. I mean, that's again, just it is another standalone piece of art. But from the movie itself, I liked kind of picking apart in the beginning the introduction of the three guys and what they were wearing when they were in that cafe. And, Jerry has like the Laura outfit on, the kind of like sweatshirt, but then he has this little French touch with his little like scarf or bandana underneath it. And then I love that Adam is wearing, I think, what someone who has his job would wear at that time, but like he's not doing anything extra. He's doing like the bare minimum. Like, yeah, I'm going to wear my blazer, but like that's it. He doesn't have a tie or anything like that. And then Henri has like this full, nicely tailored suit where you see like his cuffs, and he has this bright red tie on, and he has a red boutonniere, and he just, I don't know. You can like tell that he's like a performer just from when he shows up there. And I love how they use costumes again to like distinguish that these three guys are three very different guys. But I think my favorite outfit, I love what Milo wears when she meets. I'm obsessed with this cafe, apparently, but when she comes to meet Jerry at the cafe, kind of where she's like, they're making up after they had their little falling out after the jazz club. And she's wearing this just really nice, like dark green outfit, and she has her black, like mink stole or whatever it is over it. And she just looks like, very
So chic.
a chic woman. And I feel like she wears a lot of great outfits, but that one is my favorite. I think I also like having a character like that in this year, where she's this woman. We find out that she's a divorcee, that she lost her husband, but not in the war, that he like ran off with someone else, I think during the war. So I like that little joke that they had in there. But that she's, she has family money, and that's kind of how she's living there and surviving. But she's pretty, even though like it is this very like weird situation that she's in with Jerry. But I don't know, I find her character very compelling.
I have a very complicated view of her, because I agree, she's such a great character. Like, we don't see characters like her anymore. I think she kind of drives me crazy. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't think it's the actor is amazing. I don't know, maybe it's one of those things where it's like, oh, you see, yourself in them, where, when I was my younger self and you like want relationships so badly, and like men are kind of like often being assholes. So I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I don't love moments with her as much as I just kind of like the collective movie, but I find her story very complex. Like I actually would love just like a separate Milo story to like see how she ended up in Paris and like her experience with her husband. And I like that she has a track record for like dating artists and, trying to woo them with helping them and like giving them money. I don't know if I actually believe that she thinks that Jerry's as good of an artist as she says.
Yeah.
I know she keeps saying it, but I think she just really wants to have sex with him.
I don't think that we're supposed to like her. I don't.
Yeah.
But I also feel, I don't know if sorry is the right word. I do feel sad for her because I think that she does want love and she wants a relationship, and she's using the only thing that she has or that she thinks that she has to get it.
Yes. Like she doesn't need to. I think if she wasn't using that, which is, I mean, it would take away from the movie if that wasn't her story. But clearly, the way that they wrote her character works, because we're all having this discussion right now where we're like, oh, she's kind of like, why is she doing that? She doesn't even need to do that. She's beautiful. Like she can hold her own. Like she doesn't need to use money to have men. But it's like, that's her flaw, that she doesn't see herself as worthy without like needing money to bring in men. She's also attracted to the wrong type of men who are in love with other people. So, but it also makes sense from, where her back character and the story where she has like trust issues and she feels like alone. And yeah, it's just it's actually a really great character, so it makes sense to have this opinion of her. Dom's like, yes.
Yeah, Dom, how about you? What's your perspective?
She's my least favorite character, but I think it, not from a way that I think like it's bad acting or anything, but it works for me because I think she kind of represents like wealth and stability and like comfort. And like if Jerry were to be with her, he wouldn't have to worry about money and there'd be no issues or anything. He wouldn't even have to paint if he didn't want to. But she's kind of boring and kind of, it's like you can sense like the insecurity and the kind of desperation, and like to what you both were saying, like how she kind of uses her money to kind of attract him. And I think comparing that to the Bohemian Cafe, where they're busting out into spontaneous song and dance numbers and they're all like hanging out and cracking jokes, but Jerry has to borrow money from Henri to be able to do that. So it's kind of like notice how all like the fun dance numbers are all happening with his friends at the cafe, but he's like has no money, so he kind of needs that kind of boring, safe aspect. So it's just comparing the two. So I think it makes you torn between like, do you want like the comfort and stability of like the financially stable relationship, or do you want the kind of living paycheck to paycheck bohemian lifestyle, but it's more fun?
Yeah. I also just think that's a very like theme that a lot of people can resonate in general with. Like that's like a normal human feeling of like, safety and security versus living out.
Like I think we all agree.
Life, yeah.
I think we all agree. We're like, oh, wouldn't it be so nice to be a starving artist, like hanging out in the cafe? Like, no, it probably wouldn't.
Yeah. I'm expecting this section to be pretty short, but do either of you have things that you just really don't like in this movie? Michelle's got her list.
I have a list.
The only thing that really, it's not a dislike, it's just kind of like the least interesting part of the movie for me is when Adam is conducting the orchestra and he's the whole
interesting.
The whole orchestra. I get like it's kind of a little bit of character development, like it's kind of a dream sequence, but that's my least favorite part of the movie. But besides that, there's nothing really that I can think of.
Okay, that's fair. I think that Jerry sucks. I hate the way that he falls in love with Lise, and I'm really glad that we have this other scenes to compare it to, because Henri's introduction where he's telling Adam about his girlfriend, is he's talking about all her best qualities and all the different ways that he loves her. And we talked about this. This is another thing that I hated in the Notebook episode, but I have a real problem in movies and in real life with love at first sight. Just to see someone in the way that Jerry saw Lise in the jazz club, in my mind, is like objectifying a person. They've not said a word to each other, and he has decided that he's going to pursue her. And even when he finds out that she's in a relationship, he doesn't let that stop him. And I know that we're supposed to kind of view that as like, oh, but he's a star of the movie and we're rooting for him. And like, he's so in love, he can't help himself. But watching this in modern day, I couldn't separate myself from that part of it. And I found just his pursuit of her extremely annoying. And then I also sadly got annoyed with Lise because I feel like she folds so easily. And then we end up with that scene where they're like under the bridge, and he's like literally like a stranger giving her candy, and she's like, "No problem, let's dance together. Tell me everything about you."
Oh, candy. Would you like some?
Yes. I couldn't eat the whole one.
Go ahead. Try. The night young.
And then I don't know how much you both have read up on this. Just knowing that Gene Kelly, for all the talent that he has, I think was a little bit of a difficult person to work with because his standards were so high. So I think I'm also seeing all of this and not being able to separate this dynamic of this like man who has all this power and this young girl who like doesn't even speak English in real life, coming into having to do this role and him being really hard on her, and then also them being this romantic storyline that I don't think works for me. All of it, like, is just icky.
Yeah, I have a rebuttal.
If you're gonna do a rebuttal, I'll let me just go first because I agree with Michelle. It is. I mean, he is using Milo for her money. Like he doesn't really like. There's not really a deep connection there. He can tell how like kind of insecure she is, that he is using her for money, and he is also using Henri for his money. And also one of the opening scenes, like when you first see him on the street selling his paintings, he kind of dismisses the one girl who just wants to talk about art with him, and he's like, no, I don't, if you're not going to pay me, I don't care. And then he goes on like a whole tirade about like American girls studying abroad, which is funny. But yeah, I mean, he's not really a great guy. I think just for me, because he's so charismatic that it kind of papers over his like him not really being a great person. And like I feel like Gene Kelly could play like a serial killer, and I would be like, oh, but have you seen him dance?
Have you seen his tap dance routine? Have you seen his morning coffee routine? Yeah, no, I 1000% agree with you. I think this is how I try and challenge myself when I watch movies from all different eras and even current day ones that have these very uncomfortable storylines. Is that scene, Michelle, when he meets her, drives me crazy every time because he's just so clear, the way that he's like sitting there like smiling at her and then just like inserts himself and then like forces her to get up, and just all above all the things you said, especially as a woman, it's like every woman's worst nightmare to be in one of those situations. But I always like, and especially in more modern day movies too, I always try and find like that line of, I don't think they're condoning this. I actually think it's reflecting how men treat women. And it's confusing because this movie is made by men. So I actually think it's an accurate depiction of something that is very happens and is like how women are objectified especially as young women. The whole like time I kind of have that same feeling of I don't really want her to be with him. And I always feel like that scene in the perfume shop where she just flicks a switch so quickly is just, it's so rushed, and I almost would have rather her shown some interest to him in the beginning, at least, to be like, oh, this guy's actually kind of charming, but listen, I'm just not interested.
Dom did almost win me over earlier with your comment about you could see their love coming to light through their dancing. When they are dancing together, you do feel chemistry, and they, of course, look great together. I'm just struggling a little bit with least didn't really seem like she had to be talked into this. Also, Laura, to your earlier point, I also think that Jerry is not really a good artist. I think that Milo could have gotten all of those paintings at Home Goods and saved some money.
One of my first notes was, because we just came off of Mamma Mia before this, we were talking about how Amanda Seyfried's drawings when Pierce Brosnan is like, this is really good. This is amazing. And it's just like a line drawing of a man. And I felt the same way, where for one of the first things I wrote was like, is Jerry a good artist? Because I don't think he is.
I mean, what's funny is because the first scene when I think he's walking to his area on the street, he walks by this like guy who's painting these like abstract paintings. I'm like, what's going on with this guy? Like, why? I want to know what's going on here. Like, I like this guy's art.
Yeah,
I was going to say that art, the abstract guy art, is so much better. Milo should have gone for him.
But yeah, I also just think that Jerry's character to all of our, like, he's kind of he's not a good person.
No.
He has some redeeming qualities. He's great with children, apparently, with the bubble gum.
Why did they all, like, just because he sings and dances with him, they're just enamored with him?
I know.
The kids in this movie were also like,
I know,
very cute.
So cute. But yeah, I think that we can all give Jerry a big X.
Yeah.
Maybe just stick to the dancing. So this season, if you haven't listened to our previous episodes, our previous episode, Mamma Mia, we are doing favorite scenes, but we're also covering our favorite song in every episode. So, Dom, do you have a favorite scene and a favorite song?
I guess the ballet doesn't count. I mean,
it counts.
It can count. Yeah.
No, because we already spoke about that. I'll say, I mean, I like I Got Rhythm a lot. I think it's like really clever. I mean, Michelle, you may know. I guess this music wasn't written for the movie, right? Like this music like existed prior to
No, it was like Gershwin's music that they got rights to, so they could do whatever they wanted with it.
I'm probably getting it like assassinated by someone because for like not knowing any of this stuff, but I'm assuming like previous iterations of I Got Rhythm like are kind of more straightforward, and I feel like the way kind of with the children is kind of like a fun scene.
I got
Daisy.
I got
in green pastures.
I got
My gal, who could ask for anything more?
The song by Strauss is this first song that the three of them sing together. I mean, all the scenes with the three of them together in the cafe are like my favorite scenes. So that one too, I think is really fun.
When I want a melody lilting through the house, then I want a melody by Strauss.
Yeah, I think my favorite scene is also the scene where they sing by Strauss, just because I love the three of them together, and I love the cafe, and I love all the people who work in the cafe and that are around them. I think that that's just a really fun number. My favorite song, we have not talked about the scene because it is kind of its own another little vignette, but I love the song itself, A Stairway to Paradise.
I'll build a stairway to paradise with a new step every day. I'm going to get there at any price. Stand aside, I'm on my way.
I did not do research enough to know. I think a lot of the songs that are in this movie are kind of part of the Great American Songbook, and that are like old standards that have been covered many times. But in the timeline of like, were they featured in this movie first or before? I have to think before. And you know, that scene is kind of weird and unnecessary, but I think the song is great.
I don't really have one standout song that I love. I think Swonderful is a fun one.
Soft lies, paradise, it's what I love to see.
I actually really like Adam's piano number, but specifically for comedic relief, because when he's playing all the different instruments and there's like a scene where he hits the gong and then he's playing the xylophone and then he's playing the drum, and it's just a very funny, but the music is great. But I think my favorite just comedic scene is when Henri and Jerry are talking about how they're both in love with Lise and Adam knows, and he's like eating the cigarette in his coffee, and just all of his like I feel like with musicals I don't typically have favorite lines, but just that kind of like slapstick humor where he keeps interjecting with like very funny comments. And one of the things that he says is Henri's like, I have wonderful news or something, and Adam says like, tell me something cheery. And then Henri's saying like, oh, well, if you're in love and she's in love with you, then there's no problems. And then Adam says, yeah, where'd they go? Like, where'd the problems go? So I just like that whole, it's a very old school but funny sequence of dialogue.
Love that. And I also love the like, when you think of Adam, you think of cigarettes and coffee, and the fact that they got that scene in there where he's like literally ingesting both of them at the same time and just like so frenetically is great. And then also the scene that you mentioned where his kind of where he's doing all the parts is also just like almost like a result of like ingesting so much of that, smoking so many cigarettes and drinking so much coffee. Is just this like kind of, manicness.
Yes.
That scene is, I think that scene is great.
So good. I also really like the scene of even though I really hate Jerry's outfit and a lot of the costumes, but I really like the New Year's Eve party. It's just very fun. There's a lot going on. I feel like old movies that take place in the 50s and 60s and just like New Year's Eve parties seemed so fun and people really got dressed up. Was it a New Year's Eve party? Was it just like a party?
I don't think that it was a New Year's Eve party.
Okay.
I think they called it like the art students ball or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is,
maybe I'm saying New Year's Eve because it does remind me of one of my favorite movies, which is also kind of maybe we'll cover it at some point in this podcast, but Phantom Thread. And they have like a very exciting, just a lot of things going on like a New Year's Eve party, and there's just like a lot of background shenanigans, but I like all the moments in this movie where people are like diving off the banister and Adam's playing on the piano and people are drinking champagne and there's all this drama and there's just like all these things going on at once. It's very fun and exciting.
I know this in musicals, I think in general it's a little bit tougher to identify these, especially when we're not like, this isn't like a movie we knew as kids. But did either of you clock any favorite lines?
Before Lise like gives into him, I always love that line because just her French accent is so great, where she says like,
it's a pity you don't have as much charm as you have persistence.
But I have. You've only seen the aggressive side of it.
There's some very like cheesy lines that I think are sweet. Jerry, I think, says this. It's a voiceover, but he says like, it's a place you don't run into old friends, but I don't have that problem. And then we, end up meeting Adam, who he's known forever. And I like that when him and Lise are having that conversation at the end and he says like, Paris makes you forget.
How about you, Dom? Any lines that stuck out to you?
Specific lines. I mean, everything Adam says is funny. Like the scene in the beginning when he's trying to get coffee and the waiter keeps ignoring him.
I know. I love that slapstick humor. It's so good.
The whole the scene like right after that where they keep like exchanging the money, like because Jerry needs money is funny. I feel like Henri's very like positive.
Yes, I love him so much.
He's the gayest girl in the world. Something like that.
We'll end on a positive note for Jerry because my favorite line does come from him. It is before we meet him and learn to hate him. And it is, as Laura mentioned earlier, very cheesy. But it's in the opening where he says,
I'm a painter. All my life, that's all I've ever wanted to do. And for a painter, the mecca of the world for study, for inspiration, and for living is here on this star called Paris.
Okay, let's move on over to our food section. Favorite section of the pod. Any standout food moments in this movie? They eat and drink a good amount.
Lots of cafe eating. Then we get the goose or whatever the bird scene is. But I get the sense, at least from Adam and Jerry, that they are just kind of like they're scraping by. So I could see them sitting down at a table where the people who were there before them just left and just finishing whatever was left on their dishes and like it not being weird. I don't know. I'm picturing a lot of that happening.
So I feel like it's very true to European cafe culture where they just smoke cigarettes and drink coffee and like liquor all day and you never see them eat. I feel like whenever we're in Europe, all these people are like toothpicks and they're just smoking cigarettes and drinking wine and cigarette and coffee all day. I'm like, I haven't seen you eat one piece of food.
I know, and they don't drink water. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me. We're doing something wrong.
Can I give you my list?
Please.
Okay, these were my standouts. Not of things that I like necessarily clocked, but this would be my full menu for this movie. Martinis, champagne, bread, butter, brioche, coffee, and cigarettes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The basket of brioche.
That would be the menu. Like if you were to go to an American in Paris themed restaurant, I would have one of those really tiny menus with that, with cigarettes. You could buy cigarettes.
Yeah.
Honestly, Dom and I always talk about our dream would be if we could afford to open up something, it would be like an all-day cafe where people go in and drink coffee and then at night it turns into wine. But that's such a good idea where you have cigarettes on the menu.
I think we'd be breaking a lot of laws here in the States,
I
but
think so. I don't think it. Why can't you sell cigarette if you could sell it at like a corner store?
But is it legal to smoke? You can't smoke inside anywhere anymore, can you?
Smoking. I feel like you can, maybe not. I'm gonna do it.
I was laughing the scene where like kind of the babushka woman at the cafe comes over with this overflowing basket of brioche buns, and I was like, oh, that'd be so nice. But I know in reality, if you go to Paris, they're like you get it yourself. Like they don't, I don't even think they would give you.
No, I feel like they don't do.
They like spit at you.
Yeah. All right, Michelle, what should we do for our dinner party this week? Dom, why don't you pick a setting? Where are we going to have our dinner party?
Either Jerry or Adam's apartment.
Oh my God, I love this.
Let's do Jerry's apartment. I was really hoping you were going to say Jerry's apartment because it's such a good scene. Okay, we'll each give each other someone and we each have to bring something to the party. So, Dom, I'm going to give you one of the French children.
Okay.
Unnamed. We don't know which one. Maybe the one that Jerry paints or, you know, it doesn't, we don't learn any of their names, but one of the bubblegum children. So Dom, you can give Michelle someone.
Michelle, I'm going to give you the husky American guy who's whisking Henri back to America.
Okay. His like agent or someone. Yeah. Okay. A true American in Paris.
Yes.
Okay. Laura, I'm going to cheat a little bit and I'm going to give you a couple because we did not talk about them yet, but I loved them. This couple, the Jansons, that were at the jazz club. I was very intrigued by them. I connected with them immediately because I was like, okay, this is like a couple without kids who are just like out at midnight on a random night, and they're kind of connected to the art world, but we don't get a lot of backstory for them.
Isn't there some discussion about a newspaper?
Yeah, and I love the Mrs. Janssen's outfit. She's wearing like a very almost like more like masculine forward outfit, and like a cool hat like the one that Diane Kruger wears in Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah. So good.
Like that's kind of like what her look is. So
this is my theory for how all these people came together. So I think that Jerry somehow was like, we should all like get together. You guys come to this address, but they like misunderstood and they think it's at his apartment. So they're like up there like waiting for him, but he doesn't show up because he's like out with Lise. And I think that one of the children like came up and was like, I'm looking for my friend Jerry. So they were like, do you want to join us for dinner? So this is how we got here. I think that the Americans, because the couple, the Jensens, aren't they American?
I think that they are.
And Jerry was just trying to bring everyone together. So that's how they got into the situation. And one of the bubblegum children wandered in and they just invited her to hang out. I can go first. I think the Jansens, they don't have like a kitchen while they're visiting Paris. I think that they're at like a bourgeoisie bitch hotel. So they're definitely going to have to rely on like, I think that they have like, they're staying at a really fancy hotel. So they like call up the cook at the downstairs restaurant. They're like, we're going to a friend's house for a potluck. What can you make for me? And I could see them also following suit with Henri and bringing a bird. So they're going to bring like a bird on a platter and they're going to bring a bottle of red wine. Just a bird. We have to involve the bird in this potluck.
All right.
Dom, what is your French child bringing?
I'm picturing the child being like an Oliver Twist kind of like beggar on the street, like, please, sir, may I have another? But so I don't want to say, but I don't want to say he's coming empty-handed. And he wouldn't bring bubble gum because Jerry gives him the bubble gum. So maybe I think the boy will bring, like, you know, those oversized twirly lollipops that, like, stereotypical French children are like frolicking through the streets licking.
That actually is really reminding me of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which is also going to be covered in the season.
So I think he's bringing oversized swirly lollipops.
Do you think he's bringing one for himself, or do you think he brings some in
I
case?
think he's bringing one because he's a child, so he doesn't really know like
Etiquette.
like etiquette for like a dinner. So I think he's bringing like a half licked one.
I'm picturing them all like taking snaps of it and like passing it around as dessert.
While they're waiting for Jerry, be like, is this guy ever going to show up?
Fucking Jerry.
All right. I think our American agent does not understand the assignment of living in Paris and the Parisian way of living or eating. So I'm picturing him, unlike the Jansons who were imagining at this like fancy hotel, I'm picturing him in like whatever the equivalent of like an Airbnb would be. I think that he's in like a long-term rental. And I think that he's going to like slow cook a brisket and carry it all the way across the city, like he's still in the cooker. And then I'm assuming, even though they're not invited, he has some kind of assistant that he doesn't treat well that's along with him on this trip that is actually doing all the work. I do think that he makes the brisket himself, but I think the assistant makes all the accoutrement for it. So maybe some different like sauces and jus to go with it, and some roasted potatoes, roasted vegetables. And I don't know, for some reason, though, I think that red wine would probably go best with this meal. I'm picturing him just bringing like a big bottle of like, or maybe several big bottles of spirits, of like a vodka, like a bourbon.
Yeah.
And maybe even like some beer. I don't know where he would have gotten that in Paris, but I think that he would walk in there with the brisket and want to be like celebrated because all they have is like the bird head and the lollipop. But then the assistant is really bringing like all the good stuff and doing all the hard work. So
I think
that's how I'm
every
imagining that going down.
every dinner party we've ever done, this is the one that I would least want to attend. I mean,
Yeah.
we're in this
And plus,
beautiful.
there's nowhere to sit.
Yeah, where are they gonna sit? On Jerry's little stool that he makes his bad paintings at?
Do you think
Alright.
he was talking about smoked meats with the little French boy?
I think so.
Probably.
I think he's like, you ever have one of these? We have this on 4th of July. And he's like, I don't
You
know
got a
what that
Traeger?
is. Yeah. All right. So to close off, we got our this or that segment, Paris style. Very exciting. All right, Dom. Would you rather be a cafe owner or a florist?
Cafe owner.
Would you rather have Milo as your paint sponsor or Henri as your sugar daddy?
Oh, that's Henri. Henri is like a fun time. He just breaks out into song.
Dom
that-
gets to go to all his shows for free. So good. Brioche or baguette?
Baguette. I'm not really a huge brioche fan. The overflowing basket of brioche buns was more so like a sign of like hospitality from the cafe owner. I would touch it. I would like grab a bite, but I wouldn't really be eating all that. It's more so like, oh, how nice. Like she gave us the brioche buns, but I don't really like brioche as much. There's like a lot going on.
I feel the same. Ballet or orchestra?
I guess I'd have to say ballet since the orchestra wasn't really doing it for me for this movie. And considering, actually, yeah, I'm gonna have to say ballet because the two experiences I've had with ballet in my life are this and the movie The Red Shoes, which also has a great ballet sequence. So ballet were 2 for 2. So I think that might actually be,
Yeah.
maybe that's my new thing. I
It's
don't know.
kind of a silly one by me because ballets also have an orchestra playing, so you get the best of both worlds.
I know what you.
But yeah, but I was more so thinking as like if you were going to go, would you rather go to the ballet or the orchestra? Okay, and would you rather have aperitifs at the jazz club or coffees at Cafe Ami?
This is a tough one. I'm gonna have to work through this one out loud. So I don't drink coffee, but I love the energy of the morning coffees at the cafe. And I like jazz and I like aperitifs, but it looked a little smoky in there and a little loud.
Tom, this is not good training for our cigarette forward cafe that we're going to be opening up. You got to
It did
get
seem
used
like
to
it
this.
had no
Really-
ventilation.
Go with me on the breaking the laws.
Well, my thought was like we'll have the windows open so it won't be crammed in a basement. So it will be a flow.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. I mean, it'd have to be the jazz bar as long as it's like at a moderate volume because it did look fun. And I mean, I can't really say the coffee at the cafe because I don't drink coffee, so I would just be sitting there hoping they just break out into song and dance and I just get to like clap along, but I wouldn't be drinking anything. And I don't like brioche as I said previously, so I'm kind of out of luck there. And I also don't smoke cigarettes, so I really would have nothing to drink or eat there. So I guess I'd have to say the jazz club.
Okay. Laura, yours were great. Bravo. You should be in charge of all of this or that's from now on because they were like concise to the point. Mine were like very wordy and specific. All right, Dom, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would you rather work at a perfume shop or be a struggling painter who can't sell their work?
No, I don't think Laura would let me work at a perfume store because the one time I bought perfume, she hates it.
He was actually in Paris and he brought me to all these different perfume shops so he could get himself some special cologne. And I waited outside because I was like, the smells too much and I feel bad. Yeah. I know.
I'm also, this story is unexpected for me because on a previous episode, Dom talked about how much he hates going into, was it makeup stores? Like a Sephora type store?
Yeah,
and you
he
have
hates
to wait
Credo.
outside.
He hates Credo. So he's not okay with makeup, but he's okay with perfume shops.
I don't like perfume stores, but you have to go to get the. I don't want to
have to go in Paris.
And by the way, like I'm referring to cologne. I didn't get like female perfume, but I think
it's
okay
totally
if you
fine.
did.
I don't think cologne, if I remember correctly, I don't think cologne is like male. Is for men. I think that's a different something else. Like anytime I wear it, Laura's like you smell like it smells like what I used to wear in like high school. She just doesn't like. But it's a large bottle, so I have to. It's going to take.
It's very big, and it's a shame. It's a shame.
It's a very large bottle.
I've gotten used to it. I have to say though, every single person that all of our friends when he does wear it, they're like, oh, it smells amazing. I'm like, don't encourage it. It smells so bad.
All right. So similarly, whose apartment would you rather live in, Jerry's or Adam's? And I just want to give the reminder, I went over this last night to be sure. Adam's does have an actual bed, even though the piano takes up most of the apartment. Jerry's has that kind of like pulley system Murphy bed.
Funny because they do the thing where Jerry's supposed to be the struggling artist with a terrible apartment, but it's like it's still like a cool apartment, even though like there's no room in it. Like it still is like a very apartment that I would love to live in. But I think the actual answer is Adam because I definitely identify with Adam, where I wish I was like a concert pianist, but also like it's my sense of humor, where he's like this sick pianist, but he's like, nobody likes me and I'm unemployed. And it's just like a serial killer apartment where there's just the nicest piano you've ever seen and nothing else in the room, which I think if I wasn't with Laura, that would probably be, I could definitely see that alternate universe where I'm in Paris, but with nothing in my room besides a like multi-$1,000 baby grand piano.
All right. So if I ever die, I know where Dom's going.
Yeah, we'll know where to find you.
Yeah, he's gonna have no art.
Wearing the best perfume in Paris.
Yeah.
All right. These two things don't really go together, but this is what I came up with. Okay. Would you rather get ditched at the jazz club by Jerry in the way that Milo did, or have to be the girl who wears one of those giant headpieces in Henri's performance of Stairway to Paradise?
I would rather be Milo because you ever go to a bar, Laura and I talk about this a lot, but you ever go to a bar and there's like a woman there that there's like more to the story. Like they look like they're kind of like the lead character in a movie where like it looks like someone's filming them, but they're not. They're just like living in the world. Like I feel like if I was Milo, you could definitely like if you were left by your man at like a jazz club in Paris, like you could definitely get like 3 seasons of a TV show out of that.
Yeah, good
Or
call.
like looking longingly, smoking a cigarette alone at the jazz cafe. Like you could definitely get like some content there, and like I could definitely see going to like a jazz club in Paris, just like a woman alone, wearing like a coat, smoking like 12 cigarettes, and you're like what's her story? Like what's going on there? So I feel like whereas if you're like the dancer in 1951, I don't think you were being treated very well. So.
No.
Yeah, and that seems like a big hat. I actually
Big heavy hat.
I actually did read that the dancers passed out a lot during that
Yeah.
performance because it was like really hot or something with the
And people
lights.
fall down the stairs.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem fun.
I also think that there's more to, we didn't really get a lot of explanation as to how Milo knew that guy, Tommy, who's Dr. Bellows from I Dream of Jeannie. That relationship also felt sketchy to me.
It felt weird that she he knew about all her relationships. He's like, oh, be careful with that one. He's like, he's another artist, you know? Like, I feel like she wouldn't be spilling to him that she's like, unless, I don't know, he's the one that worked for the newspaper. Like, he's like, works with her, I think, on a professional level. But it's also just like that wealthy class of like random people.
I think I'm nervous that like he likes her. So I think I'm rewriting this in my head for him to be just like a closeted like gay best friend where like he knows all the gossip about her.
Yeah.
He's kind of a wingman, but not.
I don't get the energy that he likes her. Like when Jerry leaves, he's like, I'll see you again soon. I'll get this next time. He's like, if there is a next time. Like he's just very, he's gossipy.
All right, moving on from Tommy. If you are going to go to the art students ball and you have to wear black and white, would you want to dress more like Jerry's outfit, which I interpreted as kind of like a jester, or Adam's, which was like a cowboy look?
100% Adam.
You're not dying when you saw his outfit.
Amazing.
Like I couldn't dress as like a jester. That's like it's like jesters are just so embarrassing. And like speaking of like main character energy, talk about lack of main character energy. Like imagine just being a jester.
It's not great.
No, I don't want to imagine
doesn't have Gucci. That's also Dom's, like, I guess his two alter egos is like brooding pianist in Paris and then also like a Western man with one of those really big cowboy hats, like living out somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
Like on a ranch.
You will find Dom in one of those places if I ever pass away before him.
I was trying to figure out, was Henri's kind of like a matador or something? I couldn't quite place what he was trying to be.
He seems like he seems like he likes like matadors, like one of those like European men who just goes to like the running of the bulls.
Yeah.
I loved Lisa's outfit, but it kind of reminded me of a child's dance routine.
Yeah, I did love the star.
I know, so pretty. I loved Milo's outfit. It was like
Milo looked the best
V-neck.
in that. I know I mentioned the green dress, but I loved that. Like the halter and the feathers. So this was, I know I didn't really dress up for this, but I'm like, I'll wear black and white for like the black and white ball.
Yeah. But you also look like an outfit that Lisa wears. You don't have the vest, but when they go on their first date
the vest
by the river. Yeah.
Yeah. That was cute. All right, a last one. Would you rather get stuck dancing in a 17-minute ballet or be the party guest at the art students ball who keeps getting thrown off the balcony? I don't know if they repeat the same shot, but you see it happen twice and it looks pretty identical.
Wait, sorry, what was the first one?
The first one is getting stuck dancing in a 17-minute ballet.
I mean, it'd have to be that because I'm afraid of heights, so I couldn't do that. I couldn't be thrown off a balcony.
It was like both are Tom's nightmares.
But the first, I mean, I couldn't do 17 minutes. I mean, I'm out of shape. I'd be winded after the first.
Dom, who would you be in the ballet sequence?
You could be one of like the Dapper Dans, like with that one of the hat guys.
Am I misremembering? Wasn't there someone giving a kid ice cream, or am I misremembering?
That's definitely possible.
There's a lot of
like someone moments with like a cart
in this movie giving children treats. I don't know how I feel about this. I was gonna say I feel like you would be in the marching band.
Yeah, I guess.
They take a lot of big strides
I know.
in that
They
scene.
they come in like 3 separate times.
Like because everyone's very talented and it's very physical. I know Laura would do well in the marching band, but I would have no choice but to do that because I couldn't be thrown off a balcony multiple times.
They seemed into it. They were like, let's do it again. I love being thrown off balconies.
Hey, you know what? You hate on me for being in the marching band, but that has kind of main character energy to transform into something else.
All right.
Well, we've already hinted at this multiple times throughout this episode, but next week we are going to be covering La La Land. And yeah, it's just going to be a Michelle and I episode. So make sure you tune in. And we'll see you soon.
See you then.